Well, the plaster has been, as you can see. It's dry, time to get decorating. See you on the other side. So, there we have it. Just quickly shooting on my phone to show you that the majority of the decorating is now done. I've just brushed over probably months worth of weekends of working to get it done. I didn't want to go into loads of detail and show you it all being done because, well, it's nothing to do with music, is it? I just wanted to show you that the room is just about ready. So there we have it. Like I said, there's still a door to put back on, ideally a new door. There's still a radiator to put back on, but the room's more or less ready to the point where I can start putting some furniture in, get the studio desk out of storage. I just wanted to show you what it looked like, to be honest with you. The blue colour is quite striking. I've always liked to have kind of striking colours in the room that I do music in, just to give it a bit of an atmosphere. Just make it somewhere nice to work. One thing I did want to quickly do was actually just jump onto SketchUp to show you how I used it to plan out what I was going to do with the room and all the considerations I made in terms of acoustics and things like that. So maybe we'll do that now. Let's take a look. So this is SketchUp, an application originally developed by Google. It's no longer ran by them, but it is still free to use for non-business purposes, and it's really handy for just jotting up things in 3D. It might not be everyone's cup of tea, but it's certainly the easiest thing I've found. You can very quickly just draw 2D shapes, turn those into 3D shapes, modify them, move them, all this kind of thing. As I say, it's not going to be for everyone, but it's very good for modelling interior design and layouts of rooms and things like that, because it's got a massive built-in library of user-created content. If I just go online, I can search for all kinds of things, and it includes branded things. So for example, the vast majority of the IKEA furniture catalogue is on here. Not supplied by IKEA, people have made them themselves, but usually they're pretty accurate. So for the sake of interest, I'll type in IKEA sofa, search, and as you can see, there's plenty of IKEA sofas. Some of them are better named than others. But you will find that all of these actually match up to certain models within the IKEA catalogue. For example, this Solster, I think, is actually the so-called sofa bed that I currently own. You've seen me sit on that before. I can just import that straight into my model, and there it is. And with any luck, that's also to scale. Certainly doesn't look like it actually compared to this chap, but maybe I chose a bad example. But we've got a tape measure up here which allows us to check distance between 2 points, and it's telling me in the bottom right hand corner there that's 1.36 meters. I don't know if that's the right measurement for that particular sofa, but you get my point. There's also not an extensive library, but an ever expanding library of audio equipment. For example, if I put in there Marshall amp, maybe. You can see people took the time to modify or just straight out model existing Marshall things. And there's a selection of studio equipment in there as well. I think that's the Marshall Mini Stack. So with that in mind, I very quickly, after taking a tape measure to the bedroom, managed to knock up a rough 3D model of the room, which hopefully is very much to scale. So we can see that we've got a room which is 3.3 meters in diameter. That was probably a bad place to measure. Let's just check from that wall to that wall. Yeah, 3.42 meters that is. And in this instance we've got an alcove, but the very extreme end we can see that it's about 3 meters that way as well, or if you're measuring from this point it's about 2.7 meters. But this gives me a nice 3D model I can use to visualize how the room is going to look. I think I already mentioned in previous videos that this isn't going to be a room that's just used for music. Unfortunately, I don't have that luxury. It is a spare bedroom. It's not going to be used as a bedroom very often. But I do have to ultimately try and fit a bed in here. And I do want it to be a bed that's big enough and comfortable enough that adults can sleep in it. I've already had the thought that I could use a sofa bed to achieve that, which should give me a nice space for people to sit and jam. I've just got to find a sofa bed which folds out into a full-size bed really, and thankfully I've been recommended one by a friend which I do rather like the look of, and that's an IKEA one which I will not try and pronounce, but here goes. That's the one. It actually comes in a couple of different configurations. You can have this L shape or you can have just a straight 3-seater. I'd be interested in either, but we'll say for the sake of our argument that we're interested in this L-shaped one. So I can download that straight into my model and see if it fits. Where has it put it? There you go. Sometimes it does that, it loads them off the screen and you just have to drag them across. You can see there that it's quite big in the room. Rotate that around. And first impressions are that that would just fit there, for example. Or I could maybe put it against this wall. Now I've already played around with some ideas using this sofa. I already had a vague representation of a desk. There is a desk that I have in storage which I'm not entirely happy with for reasons I'll talk about later, but because it was such an expensive desk and I already have it, I'm going to use it as a starting point. I'll have to try and remember the name of that desk now. I might have to go on the Toman website and find it. Studio RTA, that's the one. That is my desk. I bought it many years ago. Completely overkill for the amount of rack mounted equipment that I have, but it's very sturdy. That is what it actually looks like in real life, and I already know that there is a model of this within SketchUp. That's the one. As you can see, that's not a perfect model. They haven't really bothered to do the metalwork properly, but assuming it's to scale, it'll still do as a good representation. There you go, you get the idea. And it just allows you to move these things around, see if they fit. These are user created, so it's always a good idea to get out the tape measure tool and just, for example, measure the length of this couch. And then go on something like the IKEA website or wherever you're going to buy from and actually check that it does match up. In this case, it does. I do know. So yeah. Now, as you can probably tell, I'm approaching this from a practical standpoint foremost, in that, as I said, I need a bed, I need a desk. If this was a room that was purely dedicated to music, then the first thing we would do is say, right, what is the optimum desk position? Now, if this, let's just get rid of this sofa for a second. If this was a rectangular room and this bit didn't exist, then the optimum position, without a doubt, for this desk, according to conventional wisdom, would be up against the window. Don't think that's actually down to the floor. Nope, it's hovering in midair. Let's just... Can be a little bit awkward sometimes. There we go. So yeah, that would be the optimum position for the desk in the room because it gives us the longest run to the back wall and gives us a sort of an equal stereo space, so that yes, we probably will get reflections, but if we do get reflections, they will be even on both sides. Unfortunately, because this room's like that, things get a little bit more unpredictable because all of a sudden the reflections from this side are going to be completely different from that side. And yes, I could potentially get a bed in there, maybe that would work. It's all about compromises. If I was trying to give myself the most floor space, I would probably put the sofa where I just had it before and maybe put the desk in this corner here, but again, that's just going to create horrible reflections and everything. I've tried in this instance to put the desk where I initially showed it there, back against the chimney breast. Reason being that at least it's going to be roughly even, and I'm also thinking that if I place the speakers within the alcoves and potentially surround them with some soundproofing material, it will give a similar effect to the speakers actually being mounted in the wall. It might not do as well, of course, but that's probably the best I'm going to manage in this room. And to be fair, some consideration's better than no consideration. That's what I've got to work with. I have given sound treatment some thought. Here's one I made earlier. Now, hopefully you can see what I'm trying to show here. The idea is that we'd have a nice big thick curtain that would cover up the radiator to try and stop any reflections off that and the window. We've got standard bass traps in each corner, and the option of putting a number of frames on the wall. These frames are supposed to represent frames similar to this, which would be filled with rock wool material as sort of broadband sound absorbers. I may not need them, I may not need as many of them as this, but this was just a rough idea to show that I could put some of these sound absorbers on the wall. And as you already saw, I had the forethought to put a picture rail on the wall, so in theory I could hang some of these sound absorbers off the picture rail and move them around as needed, or get rid of them completely should I need to, without gluing anything or nailing anything to the wall. Similarly, the bass traps I would hope to attach to the wall with a non-permanent means, such as picture hanging strips or something along those lines, just to secure them in place. Normally, if this was a professional studio being designed for exclusive use at this point, someone might choose to put the room dimensions into a calculator to calculate things like standing waves and see if there's going to be any problem frequencies in the room space. But frankly, based on the size of the room, we know what the problems are going to be in this room, and that's going to be controlling the low end and getting a true representation of that low end that'll translate into other rooms or into cars, things like that. And the solution for that, no matter what the exact frequencies are, is going to be the same. It's going to be adding thick bass trap type material to the room to deaden it as much as we possibly can without going over the top, and just finding that balance really. So what I will actually do to start with is use this room without any sound treatment in, and just see how we go, see how the mixes translate, try and learn the room before I actually spend any money on the sound treatment. I am going to need some sound treatment, and some is always better than none. It'll be interesting to see actually if the sofa bed acts like a big bass trap. I'm kind of hoping that it will. But that's the plan. We haven't done that yet, but I just wanted to show you that I did have that in mind. Finally, let me show you the final idea I came up with of what I thought the room was going to look like roughly before I did start the decorating. Let's see how close I actually got to the real thing. So in this, I've added back in that same sofa, which I think I'm definitely going to get, my Marshall cabinet, and similar head to the one I already own. My desk, which you might notice I've actually chopped the top off. More about that later. A shelving unit I already own, and the soundproofing, which is done here in the extreme. I do have sat off camera here the subwoofer that I own, because I'm not entirely sure where that's going to fit as of yet. But this is what we're shooting for. And as you can see, hopefully I'll be able to sit here and do plenty of music, plenty of videos for you guys. Have a couple of friends over to jam on guitar and pull that out onto a bed if needed. That's the plan anyway. In the next video, I'll show you how that turned out, and just give you a little bit more thoughts on the desk, because to be honest with you, when shopping for studio desks out there, there's a lot of information designed to sell you these big, ridiculous, expensive desks, which in most cases are entirely unnecessary, and in a lot of cases as well, completely unpractical, as I've sort of found out myself really. But we'll talk about that in the next video. This one's getting long enough, so until next time, goodbye.